Hey y'all! Welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays.
Oh,
Here with Kelsey and Dill. I'm joined with Kelsey, my co-host. I'm going to put the lighting up a little bit because I didn't actually test this video out. Kelsey, how you doing? Happy Halloween.
happy Halloween, Dill. Oh my gosh. For those of you who are just listening to the audio, Dill and I are in our Halloween costumes for this year.
Yeah, even though we're a day later, because Monday is not in October or whatever, but we figured we want to do costumes. Yeah, and we have a Halloween-themed episode today,
So I am Maleficent from the movie Maleficent, and Dill pulled out all the stops, and he is Miss Minutes from Loki. He has on an orange hat, some orange gloves, and a bright orange Miss Minutes shirt.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's great.
I said on the podcast, if we hit 100 subscribers, if we hit like 1,000 listens, like I would do it. And on the actual podcast audio, we've hit 1,000 listens. We've hit over 100 subscribers on the YouTube. I said, you know what? I'm going to go all out with my Miss Minutes costume. And it's like cool. It's like a twist. I'm not putting on the heels. I'm not putting on like this round like hula hoop. I'm keeping it more like hipster Miss Minutes, if you will. Like
cool, a modern day Miss Minutes.
Yeah, I'm keeping it low key, if you will, for Halloween this year.
All right, I'll let that one slide because it's Halloween.
Well, that was my caption on my Instagram too, which you'll see yesterday. It's a weird thing. We're recording this before Halloween, but Halloween happened, so I posted my picture of me in those Miss Minutes. But you're getting the podcast a day later, so it's confusing. But yeah, that's my caption for my Instagram. Like my costume, I decided to make my costume low key this year.
That's great.
But yeah, yours is great too, Kels. I love the horns. I love it. It's like simple. Like you could walk around in the city and people won't you won't look too weird to people, but like it's cool enough that people know who you are, and it's
I went to the city on Friday and I was honestly thoroughly disappointed. Like not many people are going all out. Like
it was also pouring Friday, so I mean,
it was raining, so I understand people not wanting to go really extreme, but like I went all out. I mean, I'm not doing the whole thing right now. I mean, like I had a bodysuit on, like I
go check out her Instagram, people. It's right down there, Kelsey Kilpatrick. There's stuff there. It looked like a fun party, but yeah, I think the rain kept a lot of people indoors. And because it's Halloween weekend, it's weird because like there are people who aren't working on Monday who are gonna go Sunday night and do shit because it's Halloween weekend. But then there are people who are gonna celebrate on Friday or Saturday. But I don't know. I'm gonna check out later and see how the scope of people outside is because we're recording this before Halloween, but it's still Halloween weekend. But happy November. But we didn't want to let you down. We didn't want to go without wearing costumes because again, mine is Marvel themed, hers is Disney themed, and Disney owns Marvel, so it felt fitting. So if this gets too hard to hold my phone with my gloves and stuff, I might take the gloves off, but I'm trying to go all out.
I had my horns on my head and I was like, oh my God, I have to put headphones on too. But I think I got the balance. I got them both balanced on my head.
Imagine how Maleficent feels when she has to podcast. It's probably tough for her.
She can't even take hers off. They're part of her.
This week, inspired by Halloween, we decided we would try some different Marvel costumes on different actors from different eras and different generations and kind of see who we think would play these characters in the 80s, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, because, the Marvel Cinematic Universe happened in the late 2000s. But, like, if we were doing, like, the core 2000s, and then in the future, like, if this cinematic universe were to happen, or if it were to get a revamp maybe 10 years from now, what that would look like, or 20 years from now. I don't know how young you went with your actors, but I'm excited to see.
They're kind of all over the place with the future.
It's hard also because a lot of actors span different decades. Like there are people who are big in the 80s and 90s, or like their careers are ending in the 80s, so I didn't really include them, or they're older actors and I cast them as Nick Fury or something like that. But, in the inspiration of Halloween, all these different costumes, people like playing different characters, I thought it'd be a cool idea. And Kelsey was on board with the idea as well. Before we get to that, we do have some Marvel news to talk about. And I did find Marvel news. And it was on Twitter that I came across this. And it was a little weird. And Kelsey, I want you to tell me if you've seen this too. And this is the new logo for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. What do you think of that, Kelsey?
Wait, I saw this. I saw this because I saw this because then someone put this picture next to it, and then the scene from Guardians 1 where Yondu's talking to that guy about the Power Stone, and he's just going, oh, boo doo boo doo doo boo doo boo doo. you know, and he's like doing that back and forth with that guy. So then people like started like comparing it to that moment.
I get it up till the M. So I see the Q, I kind of get the W, the A is a little vague, the N is super vague, but then I see the T very clearly. Then there's another U. I see the M because it's got like that double loop in the middle. But then after that, it kind of loses me. Where's the A and the N? Because then I see the A and the I and the A at the end. It's very confusing, and I hope this isn't the logo. I don't know if this was a joke logo or, you know, it's trick or treat, so it could very well be a trick. But I hope it's not, because it's not a treat.
I'm dumb because I saw this and I was just like, oh, that's just probably Quantumania in another language.
Yeah, no, I think it's
I thought that it was just written in another.
It's very, very weird. But anyway, if you're listening on podcasts, you don't even have to go to YouTube for this, because this is kind of pointless because it's a really stupid logo. I hope this isn't the one, because people are because you got to think, you got to cater a little bit to people who don't know Marvel.
Yeah.
And, like, no one's gonna see that logo and be like, oh, I want to see that movie, whatever the name of it is. You know, you don't do that. But it might just be a trick. They may be tricking us. That might just be a fake, false thing. But I saw it and I was like, oh, that's interesting news. I'm trying to get her eyes in there at least, because it's hard to get my whole body in frame without cutting the head off. But
I'm trying to get my horns in frame.
The horns are easy.
Really
yeah, there you go. So Kels, why don't we get into our decades? Because I don't think you don't have news, right?
No, I do not.
All right. Well, let's pretend we're in the 80s, and breaking news, they just announced the cast for the new Avengers. And we are assuming that, like, we know some of the characters coming. Like, we didn't want to just make it the 6. We did include the 6. So it's Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Black Widow, Hawkeye. We included Nick Fury because he's a very important part of it. And then, of course, Black Panther and Spider-Man, just because those are such iconic characters. Like, and we didn't want to whitewash this whole list either, you know. And we also wanted to expand some range of age, because Peter Parker's a little younger, or Peter Parker, or any other Spider-Man. You know, it's up to us. We're the casting directors here. So, and then I think what we should do, Kelsey, is we should kind of combine, you know, come up with the best between the two of us.
Oh, like a
like kind of team? Fight it out almost. Yeah. Like,
okay, sure.
Yeah. And then if we can't decide, we can like flip a coin, or just like, you know, defer to the scarier of the two, which, you know, some would argue is me, some would argue is you right now. But
Dill, I gotta say, I'm pretty nervous just because you're the movie buff here and I am not.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing too. Yeah.
Especially with the 80s, I feel like I went very basic when it comes to well-known actors from the 80s.
Let's start. Do you want to start with Cap? For the 80s, we're in the 80s. You want to start with Cap because he's like our first Avenger, or do you want to start with Iron Man because he's like the first movie?
I'd rather start with Iron Man just because I think he's the stronger choice I have. Cap was honestly the hardest for me when it came to the 80s.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you which one was the hardest for the 80s for me was finding a Black Widow, because I was like, I want to go with someone. We'll get there.
Ooh, I like my Black Widow choice in the 80s a lot.
Okay. And we'll kind of talk about why we picked them and the decade we picked them, because like I said, a lot of them span so many different decades. Before we get into it, how did you like narrow it down? Did you just like Google 80s actors? Did you look at like and did you look at like all actors, or just like kind of like the emerging actors, like the newbies?
I literally looked up like famous actors from the 80s, and then I looked up like iconic 80s movies. So then if like an actor wasn't mentioned on the list, I could maybe refer to like a movie I've seen from the 80s, and I kind of just like picked him out through there, because I didn't want to pick someone that I like obviously had never seen any of their work before, because I don't know how well they would do the role then. So these are all people that I had to, you know, be familiar with.
Yeah. I kind of did a little bit of everything too. Like I started with 80s action movies. I Googled that because action is the first thing I'm looking at, because a lot of these are very physically demanding. So I looked at like action stars just looking through movies. So I was like, oh, this was a popular franchise in the 80s. Let me pull a few actors. I think I have 2 actors from very popular franchises. And then I looked at like emerging stars of the 80s, because I was thinking for like Peter, and even kind of like Hawkeye, maybe because he's a very supporting role, seeing who like the up and comers were. And then I looked at the Oscar winners of that decade to find like the Nick Furies, and even maybe sometimes the Iron Man or Thor, like the ones that are a little older. Because I feel like Nick Fury is going to be someone who's like a little older than the rest, or at least a little bit more renowned at the time. But actually the 80s, I didn't pick an Oscar winner for Nick Fury, so I kind of abandoned my whole thing there anyway. But let's go with Iron Man. Who did you cast as Iron Man in the 80s?
All right, so this person, I saw him on the list and he jumped out at me for Iron Man like right away, just because I feel like he plays another Iron Man-ish Tony Stark kind of guy in a totally other, very well-known franchise.
I think we have the same one.
So I had to go with no other than Harrison Ford.
I did too.
Iron Man, Tony Stark. Okay, great. I'm glad we're already on the same page.
Because you got to think, like, Star Wars was coming to an end in the early 80s, but then Indiana Jones was starting. So, like, this is the biggest star. And if you want to, like, kick off a franchise, like, why not, pick Harrison Ford? Because he is also, like you said, very snarky. He plays Han Solo, who is probably the most Iron Man, Tony Stark of any other franchise. Like, he's very similar. So, I like that pick. Yeah, that's a good one.
Great.
Do you want to go to Cap now? Figure out Cap?
Sure.
Okay, I'll start with my Cap.
Okay, go ahead.
I picked one. I found an actor who has done a lot of stuff in the 80s and the 90s. So the guy I went with Cap was Patrick Swayze, who, rest in peace, rest his soul. He's a heartthrob in Dirty Dancing. He goes on to play a major role in Point Break, which is the 90s. But I figured 80s he's young, but he kind of has a more mature, way he carries himself, which is why I thought, like, in The Outsiders, he's much more of like the old. He comes across a lot more mature than the rest, and I think you need that for Cap, someone who still has a youthful charm, but also can be kind of like the moral compass of the group. So I went with Patrick Swayze. I think he'd also pull it off well. I think everyone would be like head over heels. All the women would throw their pants at the screen for him too. So
Cool.
Rest in peace, sir, Patrick Swayze. But I have you as my Cap for the 80s. But who do you pick as Cap?
Okay, so keep in mind, I don't love my pick for Cap. And
okay.
I kind of just I felt like I was stuck with him because I couldn't really think of anyone better. I also don't know how old he would have been in the 80s, so I don't even know if he would have been old enough to do Cap. Because I don't know much about this actor, but I do know that he's in a lot of action movies, and rumor has it he does all his own stunts. So I had to go with Tom Cruise.
Interesting. It's funny because I have him as a different
It'll be
a
very short Captain America.
I have a different character and a different decade. So
okay,
I'll save my talk on Tom Cruise, but yeah, I like that pick. He obviously does play the leading man well, and he does his own stunts, which I think is a cool
And he
choice.
played another soldier in another movie that has now become a franchise for some reason.
Which one's that?
Top Gun.
Oh yeah, well
they're like making another Top Gun movie.
Yeah. I like Top Gun. I think it's fun. I think it's very cheesy action 80s, but like I like.
Sure.
I'm one of the defenders of it. All right, let's move on to Hulk. And Hulk is tough because I wanted to cast for Banner first and foremost. I wanted to find someone who is more like not very physically, imposing. So I went with Tony Danza.
I have to Google who that is. I don't know.
Yeah, this is tough because
I probably do know who that is, but I can't put a face to the name right now.
But like he kind of comes across as like he could play a really good like doctor. Like he's not like he's a little more like kind of not scrawny, but you know what I mean. I think he'd be a good Bruce Banner. He kind of has a softer side to him, like, and especially in context of all the other people I cast, like he does seem less like an action star, but I think that's what you need for Banner, someone who's going to be like more of the intelligent person of the group. So I want to Tony Danza.
For sure. My pick for Hulk is a little out there, Dill, and I'm fully aware, but I kind of like it a lot because I'm like envisioning it, and I totally think that this actor would bring just like a totally different side to Bruce that we need for like, a more like softer, delicate side of Bruce to really like be a dynamic. So when he does change to the Hulk, it's like, whoa, scary. Mm-hmm. So I actually picked my pick for Hulk / Bruce Banner is Tom Hanks.
Oh, and this is like young Tom Hanks too. This is like big Tom Hanks. This is like before Forrest Gump, okay, I like that. That's when he was still doing his comedies too. So it would be an interesting choice because MCU is a comedy at the end of the day. Oh, that's such a good pick. Good job, Kels.
Really? I thought that I was like, could he? And I was like, I think he could.
Yeah, another thing is like Bruce Banner's my favorite. So like I kind of cast actors that like I would just enjoy seeing in the MCU.
Yeah. Honestly, moving forward, my picks for Hawkeye and Hulk, because those characters are a little underwhelming for me, I kind of just went with actors that I just enjoy because I feel like they would elevate the characters more. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
What were you saying?
Who's your Thor?
My Thor is I just went with like a heartthrob, I feel, from like the early 80s 90s era, I went with pretty boy Rob Lowe.
Oh my god, I like that.
I think that he could absolutely pull it off.
Does he have the physique though for it? Like, does he have the
He could get it. He could definitely get there. I don't think he's ever needed to go there for any project he's ever been, but I have faith in Rob Lowe that he could get it together.
There you go. I picked someone now you got to keep in mind this is 80s, this is before any controversies about some of these actors.
Okay.
So a few of them are canceled now. This person isn't really canceled now, but he's kind of someone that everyone's like, ugh. And I picked, because he's in a very popular franchise, Lethal Weapon, I went with Mel Gibson. Because I think he does have like the stoicness. He was in Braveheart, like he could be Thor.
Sure.
Like, I imagine him kind of like this, you know. With the wig, I think he might skew a little older if I picked him for the 90s. So I picked him for the 80s when he was a little younger and a little more scrappy. Yeah, this was a hard one for me because you have to think like God, but also like kind of funny, but also kind of dopey. It's a really hard mix, especially early Thor, because like he does get fleshed out later. But
totally.
Black Widow's next, and this is a pick that I had the hardest time coming up with because you have one actress, and like some of these characters later on in later decades, I did gender swap some of them.
Okay.
But right now, I was like, I'm picking one girl for the 80s, and I'm going with someone who was not a huge sensation yet, but was coming off of like her first Oscar win in the late 70s, was like emerging as like an Oscar star, but wasn't really any franchises, and I think was like can kind of really deliver the emotional depth and can do the accent. So I picked Meryl Streep as my Black Widow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine
like a young Meryl Streep. Yeah, just like kicking ass with like red hair and a little bit of an accent, because she doesn't have an accent, but like I feel like you could add an accent to Natasha if you have Meryl Streep, because like Sophie's Choice, she has an accent. So
wow. That's
she would
crazy.
Also bring people into the seats, I think. So.
Ow, I just stabbed myself with my pencil. My pick for Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. I saw her like just scouring one of the many websites I was looking into, and I was like, ooh, this could be good. This could be something. So I actually picked Jodie Foster.
Oh, I like that pick. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just like seeing her do all like she didn't do that many, like a lot of crazy stunts in like Silence of the Lambs, but just the fact that she was like a detective and, you know, like I feel like
very smooth. Yeah.
Yeah. Very like smooth, smart woman. I was like, I can get behind this.
Yeah, and this is again like an earlier Jodie Foster too, because Silence of the Lambs comes I think early 90s, so like we're getting her right at the peak when we're just discovering her as a star too. I like that. Who's your Hawkeye? Because you also got to think other, you know, the relationship with Black Widow too, which I thought about a little bit.
Oh, I didn't think about that at all.
Yeah.
But
okay.
Needless to say, for my Hawkeye, honestly, he just looks like he could do a fairly good job with this role. Another actor that I feel could bring like a relatability or like a softness to this character. So I picked Bruce Willis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I actually have him in the 90s for another character, but I like that pick. I do, because 80s is Die Hard too, because like he's got the action chops for sure. Bruce Willis, yeah. Oh, it's a good pick. I think I went a whole different route. I did one of my teen heartthrobs here because I think Hawkeye's someone that's like so unknown that like you kind of need someone that like Bruce Willis, that like you're like, oh, okay, this is a cool character. And this person was getting a star in the 80s in like a lot of teenage romances, and that's John Cusack. Because I think he also he's also someone that I feel like people could kind of be like, you know, like, oh, Hawkeye, like so annoying, or they'll be like, oh, Hawkeye, you know, like it can go either way. But I think John Cusack, because I think he's strong. He could be commanding enough, but he's never going to be the strongest one in the room. He seems like more of a person who would resort to weapons rather than fists. So
yeah.
We'll save Nick Fury for last. Who do you have for Black Panther?
For Black Panther, okay. So, because it wasn't like the era of what it was, and like I feel like they're like, you know, we weren't making as much room at the table as we are today for actors of color, so it was like super slim pickings, unfortunately. So I went with this guy who I kind of found, I don't super know his stuff just because I really only watched like one clip of him, but I felt like, I don't know, he could do it well, and I feel like he could also bring like some, I don't know, he could definitely do the comedic moments, the very few that like King T'Challa has, like he definitely could do them well. So his name is Shavar Ross.
Interesting. I don't know who that is.
Huh. He literally just came up on he does like a lot of sitcom stuff. He had a reoccurring role in Family Matters.
Cool.
This is what he looks like. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. There you go.
This way.
Yeah. And his picture will be up on the screen when I edit it. But yeah, that's cool.
Because the internet wanted me to pick Will Smith so bad, and I just wasn't doing it.
He's not. The thing with Will Smith is he didn't really become a star till the 90s. But and I kind of had a similar dilemma where like a lot of the actors I wanted to pick were not stars yet, or they were too old at the point because they were like bigger in the 70s. So I went with Denzel. Washington. I think because he's also young at that time. He's not like the Oscar caliber Denzel Washington, like Malcolm X yet. I think once you hit that phase, he kind of wouldn't really work in a franchise like this. But I think he's got like that really good-natured spirit about him, but he's also very, very, tough and commanding. So I went with Denzel because like he's also like an up-and-comer at that point. Really breaking out, which is good. Who's your Peter Parker or your Spider-Man? Because like that's the one that's nearest probably to your heart.
Okay, so I had two actually, because like I knew I picked out one actor like right off the bat because I was like thinking about iconic 80s movies once again.
I think I might know where
you probably know where I'm going with this. And then another actor who's like big now, but was also in 80s movies at the time, and I could also see being like a Peter Parker type, jumped out at me, and I was like, maybe him as well. So
maybe go with the other one because I think I have the first one you're talking about.
Okay, so the afterthought kind of actor that came to me was actually Patrick Dempsey.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like I can't buy me love era Patrick Dempsey being like,
he's very young.
Hi, Mr. Stark. Like,
Yeah, because he's got like a real sincerity about him too.
And I could just see him being like nerdy and like gadgety and like making his webs and all that.
It's funny. I actually have a Grey Star 2 decades later, so we'll talk about one of the Grey Stars later.
Oh, okay.
I went with probably the obvious choice, and I picked Michael J. Fox from Back to the Future and that whole era.
That was my first pick immediately.
Marty McFly.
Marty McFly. Yeah.
So
for sure.
Pretty easy said. There we go. Nick Fury is the last one now to assemble this whole team, and I went with someone older, someone who was coming off of a hot franchise, but like was still kind of older in his franchise and then got even older. And then he did another franchise. It's hard because I'm like dancing around it, but he did the Rocky franchise, went on to do the Predator franchise, was a very good mentor role in the 90s to Adam Sandler and Happy Gilmore. And that is Carl Weathers, who plays Apollo Creed in the Rocky movies. I just think he'd be a really good moral compass. He's not super old, but I don't think Samuel Jackson was really super old either, or he didn't come across it. But he's got the, fighting chops, obviously, but he's more of like a tough, like brute force fighter rather than like I'm gonna get this cool technology. He's very old school, which I think you need for Nick Fury. So I went with Carl Weathers because I like him and I could see him rocking the eye patch. Because because I'm thinking in Happy Gilmore he has the fake arm because he gets bit off by a crocodile. So I was like, yeah, that works.
Okay, so I went with someone really out of pocket here. I could just honestly, so I'm picturing him in another movie that doesn't come out until like much later, like literally like I don't even know when this movie came out. It had to have come out like, I feel like 2010 or something. But I'm just envisioning him just in that role. Have no idea what he was like in the 80s, but think he could do it. And it's Ice Cube. Because he's like the head guy in 21 Jump Street. Like I could just see him being Nick Fury.
I wonder how old he looked in the 80s. Though. He might have been a little too young, but
maybe.
No, I think he worked because I think he got his big break in the early 90s in film, but he was probably rapping in the 80s because he was also a music star back then. That's a cool choice. So now do we want to kind of like pick our favorites between the two?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's start with Iron Man. It's Harrison Ford because
we both picked the same one.
Cap, what are we thinking? It's Patrick Swayze.
Oh, Patrick Swayze or Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. I feel like Patrick Swayze might work better for Cap. I don't know.
Let me see Patrick Swayze. Oh, I remember this guy.
Yeah, no one puts baby in a corner. I don't know.
Ooh.
I think it's tough.
Okay.
I'm leaning more physically toward Patrick Swayze, but acting-wise, I don't know.
Listen, I wasn't completely 100% sold on Tom Cruise even when I picked him, so we can totally give Cap to Patrick Swayze.
Cool. Hulk. It's Tony Danza versus who?
Tom Hanks.
Oh, you know what? I really like your Tom Hanks pick here. Also because he's so much younger, you can really do a lot with. I'll give you Tom Hanks there.
Oh my God, thank you, Dill.
Thor, Mel Gibson versus Rob Lowe. I mean, this is tough because one is much more physically fit for it, but I mean, I don't know. Rob Lowe would be an interesting choice. What are you leaning?
I mean, know. I really need to like envision. Oh, Mel Gibson looks like he could definitely do it. I'm looking at pictures from him in the 80s.
Right. It's tough. Yeah.
We could give it. Mel? We could give it to Mel for this one.
This is gonna be another fun one, which is Black Widow. I have Meryl Streep. Who did you have again? You had
Jodie Foster.
Oh yeah, that's so tough because like both are like bad bitches too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I just can't see Meryl doing like all the stunts.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Widow
she could bring the emotional depth to it, but I've never seen her in an action film. So yeah, and I've never seen Jodie Foster either, but she has more of like a grit to her, I think.
Yeah.
So I'll go with Jodie Foster. Hawkeye, John Cusack, and who did you have?
Bruce Willis.
I have Bruce Willis in the future, but I think honestly he might work better here as Hawkeye because he's a little bit scrappier than the person I have him playing in the 90s. So I'd go with Bruce Willis here.
Okay.
I like it. Black Panther. We have Denzel versus your person.
Shavar Ross.
Shavar Ross. I don't know Shavar Ross very well, so
we can just give it to Denzel.
Yeah, sure. And then because I'm gonna make a graphic at the end too with all these, which is gonna be fun. Spider-Man.
Cool.
Michael J. Fox versus
Patrick Dempsey.
I almost said Ice Cube, but I was like, no, that's not it. I don't know. This is a good choice because like Patrick Dempsey's so unconventional. And, like, he would really be a diamond in the rough in the 80s. Like, he'd be so young. But Michael J. Fox just seems like the obvious choice. But maybe we go against the obvious, you know?
Hold on. Let me see, like, Patrick Dempsey. I have to, like, envision it, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because also the Grey's bias between the both of us. But I also love Back to the Future, so I don't know. While we're thinking of it, I think Nick Fury, just because of age, maybe Carl Weathers is a little bit better pick than Ice Cube.
Okay. That's fair.
Okay. And then I could let you have Patrick Dempsey because of that if you want. Unless you are
I don't know. I don't really
between the two. So
yeah.
Which one do you think, like, if you saw him as Peter, you go, yep, that's it?
Patrick or let me look at pictures of Marty McFly.
It's really tough. I mean, it's so fun.
Fun fact about me, Marty McFly was like my first like celebrity crush.
Oh, I think that we have to go with it then, Kels, because it's Peter Parker.
I don't think I can portray Marty McFly like that. I don't think my heart will let me. I just thought he was so cool.
You can't distance him from Marty. You can't let him play too. Why don't we do that then? Like, let him be Marty, and we'll give Patrick the role of Spider-Man. Why not?
No, I'm saying like I don't want to reject Marty McFly from also being Peter Parker. Like, I don't think I can pick another over him.
Right. I don't know. You got to make up your mind.
We can go with Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox. So there you go. There's the graphic. I won't list off all the names because I'm not writing it down, but that's the graphic you're going to see once I edit it in there. There's a graphic of all our superheroes. Let's move on to the 90s now. And this is where, again, we're getting a whole new era of performers, both comedians and up-and-comers, Oscar winners, all the same. Let's start with Iron Man. This is where I had Bruce Willis, just because I feel like he has, he's kind of a douche in a lot of his works.
Okay.
He kind of comes across that way. So I was like, Iron Man works, but I don't see him more as an Iron Man than a Hawkeye, which I think was a really good choice for you earlier. So who's your Iron Man?
Brad Pitt.
Oh, this is very interesting because I have Brad Pitt as my Thor for this era.
Oh, that's a good Thor pick.
He kind of comes across more as like, because also you gotta think 90s Brad Pitt is more of like the Fight Club 7 Brad Pitt. He's a little bit scrappier. I think 2000s Brad Pitt would honestly fit more physique-wise for Thor, but I just could see him as this younger Thor growing into the role as the 90s go on. But I like 90s pick for... I think Brad Pitt's too nice to be Iron Man, though.
Really? I think he could put on like an arrogance, like a smugness to him.
Well, here's the thing, because we already picked Bruce Willis as our Hawkeye, so he's off the table. So it's going to have to be Brad Pitt for Iron Man, but who is your Thor? Because maybe that'll sell me better.
My Thor is Russell Crowe.
Oh, that's my Thor for the 2000s. So,
oh my gosh,
because I think just Russell Crowe, I picture more Gladiator Russell Crowe than I do like LA Confidential Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Gladiator Russell Crowe's 2000s. But
okay.
yeah, like honestly, he was filming it though in the late 90s, so maybe because he worked like kind of like mid 90s to mid 2000s was like his sweet spot. So I think we could work with that. So let's make our Iron Man Brad Pitt.
Okay.
Because I think it would be a cool acting challenge, and then we'll make our Thor Russell Crowe.
All right.
We're just kind of making the decisions as we go. Who's your Cap for this era? We're jumping around.
Still, I'm disappointed in this answer. I'm not happy with it. I feel like you won't be either. It's just like the internet wanted me to cast this actor so bad that I didn't think that I could ignore it anymore.
Okay.
So my Cap is Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, and he's so young too in the 90s. That's Titanic, Leo. Yeah. You don't like that choice?
I don't love it. I don't know. I guess I haven't really seen him in an action movie, so I guess I can't envision it that well.
Have you seen like Inception? Like I think that's the closest to action we'll get from him. And even Titanic, he's got some action, but it's more of like the teen heartthrob. The thing with Leo, I think, is that he's almost a little two-dimensional, or three-dimensional, whereas like Cap is kind of like, I wouldn't say one note, but he's kind of got like that very specific purpose as like the kind of moral compass, very grounded.
Sure.
Where I feel like Leo has much more like building up inside him, like more chaotic nature, I think. I don't know.
Leo just like, he comes off just like a little too dumb for me to like be Cap.
Well, here's my pick for Cap, and I think this is a good pick. He's more of like a late 80s star, but I picked him for the 90s because he was Robin Hood in the 90s. Cary Elwes, the prince from Princess Bride. Blonde guy. I think he would work really well because honestly, I think he's the most boring part of that movie, and I think Cap should not be boring, but can be a little bit more like plain. You know what I mean? And I think that's why I would like to see Cary Elwes play Cap. I think he'd be a good, just like very grounded, very moral compass. I like that a lot. All right, so we're gonna go with Cary Elwes as Cap. We're gonna kind of cast as we go. I think that's good. We can decide as we go. Okay. So we have Iron Man as Brad Pitt, Thor is Russell Crowe, Cap is Cary Elwes. Who is our Hulk? Kelsey, who's your Hulk?
I picked a really chaotic Hulk. Everything that I said about Hulk the last round, I completely flipped this time, and I was like, but what if he's kind of an insane person?
All right, who do you pick?
Nicolas Cage.
That's my Hulk for the 2000s.
Wow.
Because
that's funny.
Honestly, I almost picked him for the 90s, but then I just loved my 90s pick so much that I pushed him to the 2000s.
Okay, so
because I think Nicolas Cage would be a crazy Hulk, and I'd love to see it kind of like the what's going on?
Yeah.
I'm the Hulk.
And like, to just like so when he would Hulk out, you would just would be like, ah!
Well, yeah, I don't know because he could do 90s or 2000s. The reason I picked him in the 2000s is because I had someone in the 90s who was more of a comedic star in the 90s, but proved he had some dramatic chops. And I think he's someone who is not an action star in the fact that he's not like very, he's not an action star, but he could be a very good Bruce. But I think because he's shown so much range and how crazy he can go, I have a crazy pick too. And because Hulk's my favorite, I went with my favorite actor of all time, and that is Jim Carrey.
I knew you were going to say that. I was like, oh my God, where's he going with this? He's going on a Jim Carrey route, isn't he?
He'd be a very similar choice where I could see him playing kind of the regular Bruce Banner very well. Because in Truman Show, he's kind of like that. He's just like a happy-go-lucky guy, but then like you get him like turning into the Hulk, and you could have him kind of doing like his thing in the mask where it's like, like it would work so well. So I like both these picks. I would not be opposed to either of these picks. Let's come back to this pick later.
Sure.
Because I have him for the 90s or for the 2000s Nicolas Cage, but like I'd be fine with him as the Hulk too. And I don't know who you picked as the Hulk for the 2000s, so we'll get there when we get there, and then we can make our choice.
God, my pick for the 2000s Hulk is so bad.
All right, if it's bad, then why don't we go Jim Carrey here and we can do Nicolas Cage for the 2000s? Does that work? Or do you want to fight for your pick later for the Hulk? Do you think yours works?
Why don't we get there when we get there?
All right,
because I don't know yet.
Yeah. So my Thor, like I said, was Brad Pitt. And you said yours was what, Russell Crowe?
Yeah.
All right. So my Black Widow, and this is a fun one because I kind of went the Ice Cube route that you did in the fact that like this was more of a music star, but they kind of dipped their toes into acting. And I've seen her in things like A League of Their Own, in Evita. She's a really good commanding presence. And I went with Madonna as Black Widow, because she's got that like sex symbol iconography about her, but she's also like a really good actress, and she kind of fits like the kind of ScarJo, like I'm like your kind of like sidekick little sister who's gonna pick on you, but I'm also a bad bitch. So I went with Madonna.
I'm not familiar with Madonna's work. I know she's been in movies, but
have you ever seen A League of Their Own?
I have, but I can't.
Okay. She's like one of the baseball players, but
in it.
Yeah.
I only remember like Rosie O'Donnell being in that movie.
I was gonna say you'd love A League of Their Own, but I'm glad you've seen it. But yeah, I love Madonna, so I'm gonna go with that.
I've heard. I forget who it was. I think it might have been Diane Keaton, like went off in an interview one day about how bad Madonna was. She was like, she can't act her way out of a paper bag. If it's not Diane Keaton, don't like come for Diane Keaton. I could be remembering this wrong. No, not at all. My pick for Black Widow was actually someone that we've seen before in some Marvel movies.
Okay. And yeah, I stayed clear of anyone who's already been in the MCU, but
she's not in the MCU.
Marvel. Okay,
she's not in the MCU, and I just think that she was like an up and coming star from what I remember about her in the 90s, and I think that it would be a really cool choice to see Black Widow be played by Halle Berry.
I picked Halle Berry as my 2000s choice, so I'm right on
the same page.
Wow! Because 2000, I'm thinking more of like X-Men was the 2000s. She won her Oscar in the 2000s, so I was thinking more later. But I like how you're saying, because you've also got to think longevity. This franchise is going to go more than 10 years, so yeah, casting her in the 90s would be good because then she could carry on to the 2000s. I like that too. So Madonna and Halle Berry. That's a tough pick because it's like two totally different people. I like Halle Berry so much. I picked her for the 2000s. I'm willing to go with her here unless you're not very confident in your 2000s pick for Black Widow.
I'm not super confident, but
all right. So why don't we cast Halle Berry for now here, and then if we get to your Black Widow pick later and we're like, we don't like that, we'll go back and change it.
Okay.
Cool.
Fair.
And do you want to kind of do the same for Jim Carrey and Nicolas Cage? Like cast Jim Carrey now, and then later if you sell me on someone else. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Hawkeye. Who did you pick for Hawkeye here?
I like my pick for oh my god, I almost said his name. I like my pick for Hawkeye a lot. Okay. I was looking at pictures of him and I was like, he's so fine. Matt Damon.
Oh, interesting. And we're getting like Good Will Hunting Matt Damon too, because he's 90s instead of the action star Matt Damon. I like that. I like that pick. He'd be a very good Hawkeye, because also again, like Hawkeye's kind of like never the first person you think of in the lineup, but he's like always there.
Yeah.
And this is where I had Tom Cruise, because I kind of picture Tom Cruise as kind of like a little scrappy little Hawkeye, but I do like your Matt Damon pick a lot more. So I'm gonna go with Matt Damon there. I like that.
Cool.
Is that good?
Yeah, I love that.
All right, cool. And Black Panther, you said it earlier, he was the action star of the 90s. Men in Black, Independence Day, Bad Boys. I'm going Will Smith. He was the action star of the 90s.
He's my pick for the 2000s.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, because he continues on the 2000s. That's what I'm saying. He's so good. Who's your Black Panther pick for the 90s?
Okay, Denzel.
Oh, so this is where you had Denzel.
Yeah.
Cool. So we already had Denzel in the past there. So we're going to have to go with Will Smith here, which means we're going to have to go with my Black Panther for the thousands. But that's okay, because I like my Black Panther pick a lot for the thousands. But Will Smith's getting there either way. So Will Smith, we're getting a young Will Smith instead of an old Will Smith. This is Black Panther, which I'm fine with. Who's your Spider-Man, Kels?
Oh my god, I love it so much. This is just another actor that I adore immensely. Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, and this is a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That's the thing. It's so tough.
This is like a 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah, Joseph that was what, like that was like the year 2000 or even earlier. That might have been 99.
It was 99, yeah.
Yeah, so like he's really like an up and comer, which works really well for Spider-Man. And I have someone along the similar vein of like he was very much younger in the 90s. He would blow up later. He's someone that didn't come to mind at first, but then when I like was looking through like, younger performers in the 90s, I was like, this works. And I went with Steve Zahn. Who many people will recognize as like the dad from Diary of a Wimpy Kid, or one of the guys from Daddy Daycare. But he was in a film called That Thing You Do, directed by Tom Hanks, which is one of my favorite movies of all time from the 90s, where it's about this boy band and he plays like the guitar player, and he is just so hilarious. The reason I picked him is that he's just such a funny dude. But But I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt has more of like a heartthrob nature to him, I think. And I think a lot of the girls are going to like Joseph Gordon-Levitt more than Steve Zahn. But like, I would always back the Steve Zahn pick, but it seems like you're a little less familiar. So I don't know.
He, you know what he kind of looks like? He's giving me like Elijah Wood vibes.
Oh, yeah. I almost thought of Elijah for another decade, but for someone else. But yeah, I think I like your Joseph Gordon-Levitt pick a little bit better, especially because like 10 Things I Hate About You, like that's the prime like young Joseph Gordon-Levitt that I feel like Tom Holland is kind of that same age range.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Steve Zahn doesn't ever strike me as like a romantic interest either. It would just be more for like the quips and the funny nature of it. So I believe we have Carrie Elwes as our Cap. We have who do we have as our Iron Man? It was your pick.
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt for our Iron Man. So that means our Thor is Russell Crowe. Our Hulk is Jim Carrey. Our Black Widow, we're making Halle Berry unless later we don't like your Black Widow choice, and then we're going to go with Madonna here. But I think we're going to go Black Widow, Halle Berry. Our Hawkeye is Matt Damon. Our Black Panther is Will Smith. Our Spider-Man is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And we forgot our Nick Fury. Who'd you go with for Nick Fury, Kelsey? We'll skip over him.
Morgan Freeman.
I did too, so let's put him in there as our Nick Fury. I recognize that the council has made a decision, but given that it's a stupid decision, I've elected to ignore. That's good. There you go. That would be
Morgan Freeman as Fury.
So there's your lineup. All right, 2000s. A lot of these are carryovers from other decades. Like I said, like you have Black Panther as Will Smith, which we've already had. I have Nicolas Cage as Hulk. I have Thor as Russell Crowe. So we're doing a little carryover. Halle Berry as Black Widow. But who is your Iron Man?
Okay, so it would be a little bit of a different Iron Man, but I kind of like him a lot. I like his grit to him. I like how he kind of, he's definitely a more manly man than like I feel like Robert Downey Jr. was. I feel like he kind of plays him, like he's more not feminine, but just like he doesn't get his like hands dirty. He's he's a techie guy,
a little more slick.
Yeah. So my pick for Iron Man is actually Hugh Jackman.
Oh, Hugh Jackman, that's a good pick. Yeah, because I think of him more as like the her rather than
Yeah. But I still think he could do it well.
Oh, yeah, he could totally do it well. This is going to be a tough fight because I love my pick, too. I have George Clooney. I have George Clooney as Iron Man. Because, like, I picture him, like, this entrepreneur, billionaire, like, very slick, kind of condescending, like a condescending prick. Almost like Michael Clayton, George Clooney, like, in that movie. Like, very, very, I don't know the word, but snarky, almost. I think those are two very good picks, though. How do we choose, Kels? We'll come back to it. Let's come back to it.
He's very good looking, George Clooney.
George Clooney? Well, yeah.
I gotta say, I don't think I've seen a single George Clooney movie.
Oh my God, you're missing out. I'm going to give you a list and you're going to, we'll do a George Clooney movie club on April Fool's Day. We'll just be like, it's not a Marvel thing, but we're
Joke's
watching it anyway.
on you.
Yeah, no. Oh, he's done so many good ones. I recommend Up in the Air, The Descendants, and Ocean's 11. Those would be the first three you watch because those are like prime George Clooney, like as the star, as this Iron Man George Clooney that I picture. Especially The Descendants, which is one of the most beautiful movies ever made. All right, so Hulk, I had Nicolas Cage. Who do you have as Hulk?
Ben Affleck.
Okay, all right, that's a good pick. Do you like that?
You don't love it.
I don't love it. I mean, I just don't see him as a Hulk. I see him more as a Banner, but I don't know. He almost, I don't know, because he was also Batman, so I'm picturing him more as like a. I guess there is no other spot for him though, but Hulk. That does make sense.
So, I'm so fine with Jim Carrey and then Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I think Nicolas Cage though is a good Hulk, like better than Ben Affleck. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Thor, I had Russell Crowe. So we picked Russell Crowe for Thor in the 90s. So it's going to be whoever you picked here as Thor for the 2000s. Who did you have as Thor?
Oh, it's a good Thor. Don't worry.
Who's your 2000s Thor?
It's real good. Heath Ledger.
Ooh, you know what? That was a last minute cut for Hawkeye, and I'll tell you why I cut him for Hawkeye. But I like him in this Avengers group. That is a good pick for Thor. Why Thor though? Why'd you go for Thor?
I just think that, like, I was thinking about really like 10 Things I Hate About You and how he's kind of got this like he's like the bad bad pretty boy that like all the girls kind of are into, and like he's from Australia, so he's like already got the accent down.
True.
And
he
like
does,
and I think he would just be a great fit. And he is like easily like I guess he was one of my favorite actors. I guess he is.
Have you seen Brokeback Mountain?
No.
Oh, that is his best performance too. You got to check that out. That's so good. I'm making a list of recommendations. That's what's good about this episode, is because I can like just rack up a list of like, you need to see these movies. I love Heath Ledger, and I was thinking about it. I was like, he just seems a little too quiet and reserved for Thor. But then I was like, but we all thought he would be a terrible Joker too, and he was amazing as Joker.
Yeah.
So like I have all the confidence in the world, and I don't think Thor would drive him crazy like Joker did. Cap
is not good. I hope you have a better one.
Okay. Because I have a pretty good Cap.
I don't know how well this actor was doing in the early 2000s. I went with another Chris. I went with Chris Pine.
Okay, yeah, 2000s, because Star Trek was 2009, but 2005 was when he did Princess Diaries 2. So he was still in the circle in the 2000s. I like that pick. You don't like that pick?
I can't really see him doing like the soldier stuff. Like obviously he's a good looking dude that, he's
a little more scrappy.
Women would like, but being like the regal, like well-adjusted character. I don't know. I think he's more of a Tony
than a Steve, in my opinion. But
I have later on.
For Cap, I have Daniel Craig. This was the decade he got James Bond, and he was, like he was more of a heartthrob back then. What's his name? Benoit Blanc. Yeah, I
know who he is. I just need to see.
He's got those piercing blue eyes. He's very charismatic. He's a little older, I think, for Cap in the 2000s. But yeah, there you go. There's Daniel Craig. But yeah, I think he could be a very good Cap, because he's a good leader, but he's not like ever going to be the most like vibrant personality of the group. And he proved in James Bond that he can do all the action stuff. And then when he's older, he can be old Cap with his Blanc accent with the knives out. So it would work perfectly.
But no Blanc.
Are you going to tell me about that? I don't think I will. It would be really good. I could see it. Daniel Craig. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. I like that pick. Okay. I like that pick way better than mine.
And my Black Widow was Halle Berry, so we already have her for the 90s. So who do you have for Black Widow in the thousands?
Rosario Dawson.
Oh, Rosario Dawson. Yeah, Cory Booker's wife. I like that. Or Cory Booker's girlfriend, I think. I don't think they're married. Yeah, I like
fiance?
That pick a lot.
Maybe they're engaged.
Yeah, like she's great. She exudes the sexy stuff, obviously with Rent. She was great in Rent. And then she's also really, really great in the new Mandalorian show, the Star Wars show. She's a Jedi, and she kicks ass as a Jedi too. So I think, she's definitely got the action chops. I really like that pick, Black Widow. I like that. And that's two women of color that we picked for Black Widow, which is awesome.
Yeah, I was trying to, shake things up.
Yeah, of course. Who is your Hawkeye, Kels?
Oh, this is not good.
Uh-oh. Okay. Well, I have a very interesting pick. So
I have a very interesting pick. It would definitely make Hawkeye more of a comedic relief, if anything else. But we didn't really understand that this actor could do heavy action stuff until later. So I don't know if it would have been, Hollywood's pick in the early 2000s. But I went with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, that would be interesting. I like that. That's very interesting.
Tell me about yours, Dill.
Well, this was the one where I had Heath Ledger, and then I erased him because I thought of something really interesting.
Okay.
So, Hawkeye to me, the power is shooting the arrows. So it's not like you need like someone like Hulk who's gonna just like rip their clothes off, or someone like Iron Man. Like I think this could be one where we gender bend, Kels.
Okay.
So I went with star of Fast and the Furious and Avatar, Michelle Rodriguez for Hawkeye. I am a big fan of her work. I think she would have a really cool dynamic with our Black Widow, Rosario Dawson. She's another woman of color, being a Latino woman. I really like her as like an action star too. She's badass. I think she'd handle those arrows well. I like that pick. I was like, this is a cool pick because I wanted to have her as Black Widow, but I really, really wanted Halle Berry on my list. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I pick her as Hawkeye? Because then she can kind of fulfill the same duty as Black Widow, except she gets the weapon instead of just the fists. So I was like, I like this pick.
I like that pick a lot. I think we can totally go with Michelle Rodriguez.
Really?
For Hawkeye. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
I'll fold Ryan Reynolds for Michelle Rodriguez.
She also does a lot of action in Avatar with like Zoe Saldana and stuff too. So she's already got that chemistry too. You could do a storyline with Hawkeye and Gamora. It'd be really cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. Black Panther, you said you had Will Smith here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because we needed him for the 90s because Denzel was already taken too. So I went with Cuba Gooding Jr. He's another person who, won the Oscar, so he can do the dramatic chops. He's got a little comedy in him, which T'Challa is not the most comedic person, but I think it would work. He's a little scrawnier, but I think, he's played football players. He played a football player in Jerry Maguire. I think he could be a good Black Panther choice. I think he's also got a very good sincerity about him too. So I'm with Cuba Gooding Jr. It's a good pick, I think. Yeah,
that is a good pick.
Yeah, cool.
I'm into him.
Who's your Spider-Man?
Oh,
You can't pick Toby.
I'm not picking Toby.
I almost did.
Oh my god, no. No, would never pick Toby. I think that he would be young enough to do Peter Parker. It's wow. This is funny now that I'm looking at this. I picked Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh. Okay, because he's also a Spider-Man villain. Is that why you said it's funny?
Yeah, because I didn't even think about this.
Also, because Heath Ledger's in the cast too, so you could have like a Brokeback Mountain thing where Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger where Spider-Man is gay for Thor.
I thought I feel like there's like a comic where Spider-Man is gay for someone. Oh, Deadpool.
Because Ryan Reynolds.
Let's make it happen.
Andrew Garfield. Well, here's my choice, which is actually funny because I picked a gay actor as Spider-Man. I picked Jonathan Bennett, aka Aaron Samuels in Mean Girls.
Oh,
because he never really had a career. He had never really had a career that blew up because that movie you think of the girls first.
Yeah.
But I think he's very good in the role. He's charismatic and I think he's like quippy and kind of like enough, like very teen. He exudes the teenager nature.
Sure.
I do think I like Jake Gyllenhaal a little bit better, but I'm trying to think maybe he's a little too old, but I like Jake Gyllenhaal.
Because it's like a Donnie Darko, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, it's Brokeback Mountain, Jake Gyllenhaal too. So I would go with I like Jake. Do you like Jonathan Bennett as a choice, or is that just more like it's a good choice but not the best choice?
I think I'm just thinking of someone who'd be able to like lead like a like a trilogy,
right.
and John Bennett is not someone that comes to mind. Where I feel like Jake I could entrust with that.
Cool. Yeah, that was just my rule of I just stayed clear of MCU actors. So I was like, I'm not going to pick any MCU actors. But he's also an MCU villain, so I guess we could make the exception. Because also that was my rule, not your rule, so that's fine. Like that was just a rule I set for myself.
I completely forgot that he was Mysterio until this moment right now, which is why I was like, oh, this is kind of funny, ironic.
Yeah, because in the 80s, I was like, oh, Kurt Russell's my Thor. But then I was like, but he's ego. I was like, I'm going to steer clear, stuff like that. So now we got our Nick Fury. We need our guy who's going to band it all together. Who do you have? This is my Grey's actor. You want to tell you who it is?
Oh my God, is it James Pickens Jr.?
Yes, it is. It's Richard Weber himself as Nick Fury because he has that role in Grey's. He's the one who assembles the team and kind of guides the younger generation. I thought it was a perfect pick for me. I was like, I love this pick. So, yeah.
I like your pick way better than I like mine.
Okay.
I picked Jamie Foxx.
Okay. Yeah, that works.
See, disappointing.
Because the thing is, I think he's a little young at that point. Yeah, but I think he could definitely do it though. He has the chops, and honestly, I'd probably like to see him more as like one of the actual like action stars than I would as Nick Fury. I think.
Sure. Yeah.
But good pick though. Like we've been nailing these picks all over, so it's fine. But I think we settled. Iron Man is the only one we have to settle between the two, between George Clooney and Hugh Jackman.
Oh.
This is tough, it's very tough. Because you haven't seen as much George Clooney movies, so you don't have as much of a basis. But because I'm sticking with George Clooney, but I know you want Hugh Jackman. We can flip a coin here. We haven't had to do that yet.
You want to flip a coin? I'm comfortable flipping a coin here.
All right, let's do it. Let's see if I can handle it with my gloves. Siri, flip a coin. Heads or tails, Kels?
Tails.
She didn't understand me. Siri, flip a coin. What did you pick?
I picked tails, so it's George.
Shit. I'm sorry.
It's good old Georgie. No worries. A noble loss to lose to George Clooney.
So otherwise we have it set, right? Daniel Craig is our Cap. George Clooney's our Iron Man. I believe Nicolas Cage is our Hulk. Thor is who? Who was Thor?
Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger, right. Black Widow it's your pick. Rosario Dawson. Mm-hmm. Hawkeye is Michelle Rodriguez, which I love. Nick Fury is James Pickens Jr. Black Panther is Cuba Gooding Jr. That's funny, 2 juniors. And Spider-Man is Jake Gyllenhaal. Now we get to the fun part, and we get to cast the future MCU. If we were to revamp the entire franchise, let's start with Nick Fury here, because we're going to pick a lot of up-and-comers. Let's start with our Nick Fury, who's going to assemble the team. This is someone I picked that is already an established actor that can be that kind of person tied all together, but hasn't like blown up in the same way as like some other superstars. I picked John Boyega from the Star Wars movies, who plays Finn.
That's funny. I picked him for someone else.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, because I think are you thinking like how far in advance? Like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What are you thinking?
Well, spoiler alert, I picked John Boyega for Black Panther for King T'Challa. Cool. So
yeah, everyone who I picked.
I'm all over the place with age 18 ranges.
Or younger. Yeah. I'm thinking like 10 years from now. You know,
some of the actors on my list could absolutely not play the roles I picked for them in 10 years. It would have to be like 20 to 25 years, at least.
Oh, like way further down the line.
For some of the actors, yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so like John Boyega is someone who in 10 years from now will be in his like mid-30s. I think he could be Black Panther or Nick Fury, but that's why I picked Nick Fury, just because he's older than all my other picks on this list. Who did you pick as Nick Fury?
So I picked someone who I'm just realizing also right now is like low key an MCU actor. Just like on the lowest of keys though.
Is it Tom Hiddleston?
No, he has nothing to do with Loki at all. Okay. I'm not making a pun. But I do think that he has like the comedy chops to bring to Nick Fury that I feel like Samuel Jackson does. Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson does. And I just think that he's like a cool, suave dude. He has a music career that's fun. So I actually picked Donald Glover.
Oh, he is in the MCU, but he's like, not really. Yeah, he's very small part. I like that a lot. I actually really, really like that, because you can also kind of have him be kind of the same character too. He could just be like, yeah, because then you can bring in the fact, because he plays Miles Morales' uncle in Spider-Man Homecoming. So he could very well just be like, yeah, my nephew Miles. And that actually transitions well. Let's go backwards. Let's go to Spider-Man, because here's the case where I picked Miles Morales instead of Peter Parker. And I have Caleb McLaughlin from Stranger Things as my Spider-Man. The problem is he would be a little too old maybe in like 10 years from now or 20 years from now or whatever, but I do like him a lot, and I think he could keep his youth like for a little while. So I'd like to see him as Spider-Man maybe in like 10 years time max. But like that was my thinking, like a cool Miles Morales would be Caleb McLaughlin. Who do you have for Spider-Man?
I like that. I like that a lot. He would have to be in the role though, like right now though. Because
like that's my worry.
He'd have to. We need a Miles tomorrow, and it has to be Caleb McLaughlin.
Yeah, we won't settle on our picks until the very end once we figure out exactly what time period we're setting it. But who did you have as your Spider-Man?
Okay, so I picked an actor. I feel like he's an up-and-coming actor for sure that I like a lot. He's been in things like he was in Adolescence, the Pete Davidson movie. He was in the Tall Girl movie. If you've ever watched American Vandal, he's also been in that. And I just think he's just a cutie patootie, and I think that he would do a great Peter Parker, and so I picked Griffin Gluck.
Okay, cool. Griffin Gluck. Okay, cool. Yeah, he looks very much like a Peter. Yeah.
Yeah. He just exudes Peter Parker vibes to me.
Yeah. Cool. And like I said, at the end we'll pick once we decide exactly how far in advance we're setting it. Let's go back to Iron Man. I picked someone here who could absolutely nail the snarkiness.
Okay.
I picked Jack Dylan Grazer from It, from Luca, from all these movies, from Shazam. Is that who you picked too?
Yes.
He's literally the ideal Iron Man, because he is so snarky. He's like almost, I'd say he's maybe 16, 17 now. So in 10 years, he's like in his late 20s. Like I think that would work perfectly. If we are setting it 10 years from now, he's just the perfect snarky Iron Man. Like he'd be so good.
He was who I was saying before. Like I think he's the youngest one that I have on my list, that I thought that it could be like a good 20 years before he's playing Iron Man. I think 10 years is too soon.
Yeah,
but
I was gonna say he's almost 18. I mean, that video leaked of him smoking weed, on Twitter.
He's crazy, and I love him. I just think that
how old is he? He's
18.
Almost, yeah. Okay, so he'd be 28. So he'd be a young Tony Stark, but he would still be Tony Stark. I think we could.
I don't know, but 28-year-olds in Hollywood play like 16-year-olds still.
Yeah, but then look what Ben Platt got shit for that. He was only 28.
Okay, because he looks 26.
Right,
if
but
you're a 28-year-old that looks young,
he already has like the mustache and stuff. He could look older.
Okay, listen. We picked the same one. We're not arguing.
Yeah, he's gonna be our pick.
He's our Iron Man.
Who'd you pick for Cap? Because I think this went hand in hand for me.
Okay. Did you pick? Whatever.
No.
I picked.
You go.
Okay. We're getting so excited. I picked Noah Schnapp for Cap.
Okay.
Will Byers from Stranger Things.
Is he a Cap though? He seems a little.
I think he could grow into being a Cap.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. I just saw him in that movie with Adam Sandler, Hubie Halloween. I watched it for my 30 days of Halloween. I was like, he's got some chops. He kind of plays like the teenage, like he's like a freshman in high school, but he's kind of like the guy who gets the girl at the end. I was like, yeah, it works.
Good for Noah Schnapp.
I picked your favorite, Jacob Tremblay, because in 10 years I could see him being a really good Cap. He's got the very boyish face, but I think he could definitely play Cap because he just seems like a good kid. He could just be like that moral compass. Like in Good Boys, he's like the moral center of the group. So I went with him, but I like both picks. And in 10 years, I think they'll both kind of be around the same age anyway.
I wanted to find a place for Jacob Tremblay. I think he's like 16. I could be wrong.
So he'd be in his late 20s. Let's just say like 15 years from now. Let's just make that the thing because like then they're like in their early 30s. So like Jack Dylan Grazer is going to be our Iron Man. And then we can go with either Jacob Tremblay or Noah Schnapp. So, like, 15 years from now, who do you see as more of a Cap?
Oh, my God, he's 15.
All right, so he'd be, like, 30. So, like, if we're doing 15 years from now, he'd be 30. So, what do you think? How old is Noah Schnapp now? Sorry.
Open up my phone and do all this
You're the numbers
Googling.
girl. Numbers girl.
Oh, I am, aren't I? Oh,
yes,
she strikes again. Okay, Noah Schnapp is 17.
Okay, so he'd be 32. So yeah, they'd both be around the same age, 30 and 32. Who we going with, Kels? Who do you like better for this?
For Cat? Oh.
At the age of 30
these are both very charming young boys.
You want to cycle back to them once we figure out who the rest of them are?
Yeah, let's circle back.
So who's your Hulk? Who's your Hulk?
Okay, so I picked someone who's also just one of the it kids right off the bat.
Okay. I have another it kid later on too.
I just think that he would do Bruce really well, and I don't know, also probably some good hulking out. He definitely showed a lot more acting chops in a series that he did later on called I'm Not Okay With This. And I picked Wyatt Olaf.
Okay, yeah. He's Stanley, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's Stanley.
Yeah, I like him. He'd be great. He comes across very nerdy too, which would work for Hulk. Yeah. Yeah, he's Stanley. Yeah, curly-haired kid. Yeah, I really like him. He's a good pick. I have Zachary Gordon there. He's a kid from Diary of a Wimpy Kid who is now like 18 or like he might even be like 20 now, which I think is fine. 15 years from now, he's in his mid-30s. He was actually just in the most recent American Pie movie, American Pie Girls Rules, and that movie was really, really bad, but he was really, really good in it. And he kind of played like this dorkier Zachary Gordon. He kind of played like this dorkier kind of student, but like he had like a really good heart of gold. He's Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which I think is funny because like Hulk to be Diary of a Wimpy Kid and then go to Hulk would be really interesting. Like I think he's already getting older. He might be around our age. I don't know how old he is, but
23.
Yeah, so he'd be 38. So he'd be pushing 40, which might be a little too old for Hulk. So I'm maybe leaning more toward Wyatt. But what are you thinking?
I like this pick though. Looking at him, I think that he would make a great Bruce.
Yeah. Mark Ruffalo's a little older. Like he's a little gray.
Yeah, he could be.
I think it would work.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So Zachary Gordon's our Hulk.
Yeah.
Cool. Who's our Thor, Kels? Who's your pick for Thor?
For Thor, I picked the deliciously attractive Jacob Elordi from Euphoria. He's from Euphoria. He's also in the Kissing Booth movie.
Oh, Elordi. Oh, okay. Oh, so he's already 24. Okay.
He's from Australia.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was all over the place.
Yeah.
I think he would make a great Thor.
Pushing 40, which isn't bad.
He'd make a great Thor.
Here's someone you might have to look up too. I picked because I had to look him up just now because I was like, who is his name? Callan McAuliffe Callan, Callan. He's on The Walking Dead. He is also Australian, and he was in I Am Number 4. He plays the young Jay Gatsby in Great Gatsby. He just has like a kind of smugness that Thor would have. I'm fine with either of these picks because they're both Australian, and this kid is 26, so he would be 41 when we cast him as Thor, opposed to yours, which would be how old in 15 years? How old did you say he was? Like 24?
He's 23. 24.
23?
He's 24.
So he'd be like in his late 30s. So yeah, I think either of these picks are a little late for Thor if we're doing 15 years from now, but I think they're both good choices for Thor. It gives them 15 years to bulk up to. Who do you like better? Just looking at their pictures, because this is the one I was like I didn't have much of an opinion on.
I like my pick better, Jacob.
Cool, we're going with your pick then. Next, let's go with Black Widow, because this is where I had an It kid. I had Sophia Lillis from It.
Okay, interesting. Beverly,
because I think she'd kick a lot of ass in that role. Yeah.
I have like a variant, I feel like, of Sophia Lillis. I went with the Stranger Kids kid.
So it's Sadie Sink?
No. Maya Hawke, actually.
Oh. See,
I think
Maya
she'd
Hawke
be like really cool.
Yeah. I was going to say, isn't Maya Hawke
I could see her kicking ass too.
Yeah, she's great. I love Maya Hawke. Yeah, she's 23 now, so that actually wouldn't be too bad. My only worry is that I think she could be Natalie Rushman or Natasha Romanoff now. Like, I think she's already at the point where she could play it now, whereas 15 years from now, she'd be 38.
So we can do Sophia instead.
Are you okay with that? I don't want to. Yeah.
I like right. Sophia Lillis.
Cool. Who do you have for your Hawkeye?
Okay. I have Cameron Monaghan from Shameless.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Who that is. Let me look it up.
A ginger Hawkeye.
Oh, interesting. Okay, tell me about him.
Honestly, like he's done things like he's in the Gotham series as well. He plays like a prequel to like Joker. So I feel like he could do definitely like stunty things. I just think that, he's a charming actor.
Yeah, he is 28, so he'd be in his early 40s when he played Hawkeye, which I think could work because he's like this like old CIA agent who you bring in as Hawkeye. Like I think it could work to have someone a little older for Hawkeye, especially since we have Zachary Gordon, who's already like 21 or 22 as our Thor, as our Hulk. I went with Noah Jupe, who is the kid from A Quiet Place. Yeah, he's really, really good. I think he'd be great. I didn't really know where to fit him. I wanted him in my cast, but I didn't know where to fit him. He is British also, so I was like, he can't really be Thor. So
Noah Jupe is British?
Yeah, I believe so. I might be wrong with that. But I was trying to think. I didn't really know where to put him. So I put him at Hawkeye, because I think he anyone could really be Hawkeye, but like he would elevate Hawkeye, I think. So I had him. And I think he'll be a little younger. Yeah.
I like that pick as well.
Cool. So you want to go with Noah Jupe there?
Yeah, because I just love Noah Jupe.
Lastly,
big Noah Jupe stan.
Yeah. Have you seen the Undoing on HBO with Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant?
Should I?
He's the kid in that. He is so good. Yeah, he's amazing. He's also great in Ford vs. Ferrari and Honey Boy. He is such a good actor.
I've really only seen him in the Quiet Place movies.
And that's not even his best roles too. Yeah. He's even. I'm making a list for you, Kels. I have it all written down. I will make you a list. All right. Black Panther's our last one. So who do you have as Black Panther?
John Boyega.
Oh, right. Okay. So John Boyega. John Boyega, also British, which is fine. He's great. Yeah, my only worry is he would be a little old by the time the cast was Black Panther. But again, he's a king, so like it could work. I went with Asante Black from the show When They See Us on Netflix. He's also one of the kids in This Is Us. He is so good. And I didn't really know where to put him, but I was like, I want him in my lineup just because he's I think, going to be one of the biggest African-American actors of our time, of our generation. He's young now. He'll be, I think, the right age when he is 15 years from now. But I'm fine with Boyega because I would love to see Boyega in that role. You know what I'd honestly love to see Boyega do? Wolverine. I'd love to see him as Wolverine.
Really?
And like, let's cast him like now for Wolverine, because it's kind of the same thing as Black Panther. Like he could do like that, like kind of like clawing his way through.
Sure, yeah.
But I like either of those picks.
I'm looking at this kid, and he just looks like regal. He looks like a king. Like
right? Like he could do it, I think. Who do you have as your Nick Fury again? I had
Donald Glover.
All right. So we could do Boyega as Fury and Asante Black as Black Panther. We could do Donald Glover as Nick Fury and John Boyega as Black Panther. Or we can do Donald Glover as Nick Fury and Asante Black as Black Panther. I'm letting it be up to you.
I mean, like,
Well, let's first decide our cap.
I personally would prefer to see John Boyega do Black Panther and not Nick Fury.
So we're gonna have Donald Glover.
But I like this kid, so I feel like we should do Donald Glover as Nick Fury and then Asante Black as T'Challa.
Cool. I'm fine with that. Yeah, because then it's also one of each of our picks. So you're Nick Fury and my Black Panther. Now let's pick our cap, because that's the last one we have to do. Let's just run through who we have. We have Jack Dylan Grazer as Iron Man, Zachary Gordon as Hulk. We have your kid from Euphoria as Thor, Sophia Lillis as Black Widow, Noah Jupe as Hawkeye, Donald Glover as Nick Fury, Asante Black as Black Panther. Did we decide on a Spider-Man? Who is our Spider-Man?
Who is your Spider-Man? Oh, because you want to do Caleb McLaughlin.
Yeah, but I think he might be a little older.
So are we going with my guy, Griffin Gluck?
Yes, we're going Griffin Gluck. That is who we picked. And then we just need our cap. Jacob Tremblay or Noah Schnapp? I'm letting you pick, Kels.
I feel like I'm picking between my children right now.
Right, that's why I'm letting you pick.
All right, Jacob Tremblay.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
He's so sweet, and I just watched Room for our Brie Larson video, so he's like fresh on the mind. Yeah. So,
yeah, I think that's a good pick. That's a good lineup. I mean, all our lineups are very, very good. I almost was gonna have us pick our best between all 4 decades, but I don't think you can do that because they're all perfect for their decades. But there you go. Those are our picks for all of our Marvel castings per decade. I think we did a good job, right, Kels?
Yeah. This honestly went way better than I thought it was gonna go.
Yeah. Next Halloween, maybe we'll pick decades for like Scarlet Witch and all those other roles too. Maybe like Sam Wilson, all those, because it might be fun. And then we can do like maybe like a Miles Morales, Peter Parker, Spider-Man thing, and like we can pick like who we think like Pepper Potts could be. Like there's so many different explorations, and Captain Marvel. There's so many other characters we could cast, but that was fun. I enjoyed that. Yeah. So if you want to revamp your franchise, those names we gave you at the end, call them up. Asante Black, Jack Dylan Grazer, we got you.
Of course, you'll have to wait 15 years, but we know how much you plan.
Do you think the MCU is going to be around in 15 years, or do you think it'll have an
15? I don't know, because like, how long has the Star Wars franchise been around now? Since 77?
Yeah,
that's
but
like 30
it was 3
years.
movies took 10 years off. 3 movies took 10 years off. 6 movies. And now
so in that aspect, then I can totally see like the MCU being a thing in 15 years down the line.
So you think they might take like a break, or do you think they'll just keep making 4 movies a year till the year 20?
I don't know. I feel like at some point something's got to give, right? You can't be pumping out 4 movies a year. So maybe maybe it'll be a huge break, and then maybe it'll be like a huge like thing when they like recast Iron Man or something, and like that's how they bring the MCU back, or they just start up the MCU with a whole new character.
Yeah, or they literally just have like all their kids be the next ones. Like Morgan Stark is now Iron Man,
or that. A lot of people think that a young Avengers, Tommy and Billy,
kid from Falcon and Winter Soldier, Isaiah's grandson.
Yeah, Kate Bishop.
Yeah, I never know. Oh, Kate Bishop. I'm so excited for that.
November 24th.
Like, Haley Steinfeld. I wanted to put her in here for so many different roles, but I was like, I can't, because she wasn't really a person in the 2000s, and she's already going to be in the MCU. She wouldn't work for our future. Because there are so many actors right now that I just want to see in the MCU. Like Daisy Ridley, get her in there. Just like so many people I would like to see. But, you're not a Daisy Ridley fan?
No, it's just like, I feel like she has her franchise. She doesn't also need...
She's done.
She doesn't need to collect the franchises like Infinity Stones.
Okay, but like it ended. Like we had Harrison Ford literally in as Iron Man. So... But that was an alternate universe.
All right, next.
Anyway, where can they find you, Kelsey, before we tease next week's episode?
You can find me on Instagram at Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. You can find me on TikTok, Cos13, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Cos Productions.
Cool. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo at Twitter, at Dylan Randazzo 417 at TikTok, and at the Dill Pickle Movie Network on YouTube, or you can listen to us here exclusively. Actually, not exclusively. You can listen to us on YouTube or on podcast, but we are the only podcast on my channel that is on audio. So download us, give us 5 stars, give us a review. We had a really nice review written by someone. Next time I will thank you on air, but I don't have your name right now, but we got a really nice review. But yeah, like, thank you for listening. This was a lot of fun. Happy Halloween if you celebrate. If you had fun yesterday, I hope you had fun yesterday. I hope it didn't rain like it rained on us. Friday night in our different areas in the city. It was fun. I actually lost my vaccine card in the city. I dropped it in the middle of the street, and some lady like hit me up on Instagram, was like, "Did you lose your vaccine card?" I was like, "I did. I didn't realize." And she was like, "I already left the Upper East Side, but I have it. I'll mail it to you." So I was like, "All right, thanks." And then I was so drunk, I texted her the wrong address. So I texted her this morning. I was like, "It's this address actually." And she's like, "It's okay. I haven't mailed it yet." So I was like, "Whew." It was.
Oh my God, that's so nice though for someone to do that for you.
It was a big trick that became a great treat. So if you're listening, stranger, thank you so much for that. But yeah, that was our recasting. Next week is a big one. What do we got coming out next week, Kels? What movie's coming out?
The Eternals.
That's right. Eternals is coming out, and early reviews are mixed, but we will be the judge of what we think, and we will be letting you know our thoughts. We will do a non-spoiler review, and then the last few minutes of the review, we'll do spoilers as always, as we always do for our movies. Anything else, Kels? Anything else I'm forgetting?
Nope.
Yep. Early 2022, we're bringing trivia to you. So if you're interested in competing in Marvel trivia, reach out in the comments. We might need some competitors. We will not just be doing trivia once. We are going to try to make it a regular thing, once a month thing. So please reach out, because we will be having belt matches at least 3 times a year. And our first belt will be awarded in early 2022, and we're going to need people to challenge that belt. So if you think you have what it takes to be a Marvel trivia competitor, go up against the best of the best, Kelsey Kilpatrick, other name that I've still yet to lock down as people to play. Go check it out. Comment below. Let us know if you can do it, because we'd love to have you. Anyway, that was us. That was Halloween. Happy trick or treat. Enjoy your Kit Kats. We'll see you next time.